Do you believe that walls can talk? I recorded the whispers from cell number 7. And here is the truth that will keep you up at night. Le Quang Dung is a skinny boy with deep eyes that always contain an unnamed sadness. At the age of 22, he is the best student in the history department of the University of Social Sciences and Humanities with a strong passion for forgotten pages of history. The old backpack that Dung always carries on his shoulder is full of meticulously written notebooks, yellowed photocopies of documents and an antique fountain pen that he inherited from his deceased father. It is the only souvenir in his small rented room in a small alley on Lee Van Phuc Street, where he lives quietly like a ghost in the heart of noisy Hanoi. Dung grew up with vague stories about his grandfather, a martyr of the resistance against the French who disappeared without a trace. Your grandfather was arrested in Hoa Lo in 1952. His mother often told him on rainy nights with a trembling voice, and never returned. But every time Dung asked further, she just shook her head. Don't dig up the past, my son. Their small house had no pictures of him, no letters, not even a grave to visit. That silence was like an open wound in Dung's heart, urging him to seek the truth. When he chose the topic of his graduation thesis on the French colonial prison system in Vietnam 1930 to 1954, Dung had no idea that he was about to embark on a journey that would tear apart the veil of history, a journey that would change his life forever. It was a late October afternoon. Dung sat alone in the archives of Hoa Lo Museum, flipping through yellowed pages of documents on due paper. He was looking for information about political prisoners detained here in the 1950s when he suddenly heard a soft whisper. Asterisk, find me. At first, Dung thought he was imagining it because he was tired, but the call kept repeating, fading like an echo from a distant room. He looked up and looked around. The storage room was quiet. Only him and the thick, dusty shelves. The call led Dung through the rows of shelves, along the narrow hallway leading to the old solitary confinement area, which was no longer open to visitors. No entry sign hung crookedly on the rusty iron door. Dung hesitated for a second before pushing it gently. The door creaked open with a sound like a groan. Solitary confinement cell number 7 appeared before his eyes. A narrow space no more than 4 square meters with a thick stone wall covered with scribbles. The air in the room was thick with a musty smell mixed with something fishy. The smell of iron, of dried blood, of pain frozen over time. And then Dung saw it. A line of words carved into the wall with something sharp. The handwriting was shaky but determined. Nguyen Van Then 1952. Don't let my name disappear. Asterisk. Dung's heart stopped beating. Nguyen Van Then. The name matched his grandfather's. He raised his trembling hand to touch the words. And immediately, a cold current passed through his fingers and spread throughout his body. Asterisk. Child. Grandchild. A whisper sounded right next to his ear, making Dung startled and turn around. But behind him was only a blank wall. That afternoon, while Dung was absorbed in writing about the words on the wall, Hanoi suddenly poured rain. Drops of water hit the window of the archive room like a pounding drum. Uncle Truck, the old librarian with silver hair and deep eyes, passed by and reminded, "You should go home. It's getting dark." But Dung could not leave without solving the mystery of that inscription. "Uncle, do you know anything about prisoner Nguyen Van Dan?" Dung asked, trying to hide the emotion in his voice. Uncle Truck paused, his eyes looking far away. Every year, someone asks about that name, but there is nothing in the file. So why did someone carve his name on the wall of the solitary confinement cell? He sighed. You are not the first person to see that inscription. Many people have seen it, but no one can explain it. People say he escaped from the camp in 1952. But, his voice lowered, I think he is still here. That night, Dung stayed in the museum after closing time. He hid in the restroom until the last footsteps of the janitor echoed in the distance. In the darkness of the museum at night, everything became strange. The walls seemed to breathe. The yellow lights flickered like watching eyes. Dung returned to solitary confinement cell number 7. The flashlight in his hand shining a weak beam on the stone wall. He discovered dozens of other small engraved lines, names, dates, hasty messages from people about to die. Asterisk. Tran Van Duc 1949. I am innocent. Asterisk. La T Mai 1951. Remember to bury me under the banyan tree. Asterisk. Pham Quoc Hung 1950. Don't believe their words. Each line was like a last wish, a curse to be remembered. Dung took out his notebook to write, but as soon as he touched the pen to the paper, he felt a cold current run through his arm. And then, images began to appear in his mind. The Hoa Lo Museum at night was a completely different world. The long corridors, the old cells with rusty iron doors, all had an unusually gloomy look. Dung walked in silence, his footsteps clattering on the stone floor. The flashlight in his hand emitted a weak light, not enough to dispel the thick darkness. Solitary cell number 7 was at the end of the darkest corridor. This small room used to hold special prisoners, those who were tortured the most brutally, those who were completely isolated from the outside world. When Dung entered, he clearly felt the difference in the air. It was thick, heavy, as if time had stopped for a long time in this room. The carvings on the wall under the flashlight appeared more clearly, not only names, but also last words, curses, last prayers. In the corner of the room, Dung discovered a large crack in the wall. When he touched it, the bricks suddenly loosened. A thought flashed through his mind. Was this where his grandfather tried to escape? He used all his strength to push the bricks away, and discovered an empty compartment behind. Inside was a small rusty iron box. Dung's heart pounded as he opened the box. Inside was a small notebook wrapped in cloth, along with a fountain pen with dried ink. The first page of the notebook read, asterisk, Notes of Nguyen Van Den 1952. If anyone finds this notebook, please tell our story. Dung immediately understood the reason he was chosen. He was not only a descendant of Nguyen Van Dan, but also the only one in the family who dared to seek the truth. The pages of his grandfather's notebooks tell a horrifying story: brutal tortures, secret executions, unrecorded deaths. He writes, asterisk, they said we were spies, reactionaries, but the truth is we just loved our country. Dung turns each page with a shiver. His grandfather describes how prisoners were hung upside down, beaten with batons, locked in dark rooms without light. But the most horrifying thing is the records of disappeared prisoners, those who were taken away at night, never to return. Asterisk. They erased our names from the books. Asterisk, he writes. Asterisk. But they could not erase the words we carved on the walls. Dung realizes his mission. He must tell this story, must return the names of those who died in silence. As Dung reads the last page, a cold wind suddenly blows through the room. The flashlight in his hand flickers continuously and then goes out. In the darkness, Dung heard footsteps, not one, but dozens, hundreds of footsteps. Whispers rang out from all sides. Asterisk, record. Asterisk, tell us about us. Asterisk, don't let us disappear. Dung held out his hand in front of him, and was horrified to see blurry figures appearing in the room. They were thin, ragged, with wounds all over their bodies. A man approached, his face exactly like the small photo in the family book. Asterisk, Grandpa, Grandpa? Dung exclaimed. The man nodded, his eyes filled with tears. Asterisk, Grandson, help us, tell our story. Then all in unison. Asterisk, history must not be forgotten. A flash of lightning, and Dung fainted. When he woke up, he found himself lying on the floor of the solitary confinement cell. His grandfather's notebook still clutched tightly in his hand. Outside, it was already light, but Dung knew that his journey had only just begun. Solitary confinement cell number 7 had no windows, only a narrow slit at the foot of the door to push in a bowl of moldy rice every day. In that darkness, skinny men sat against the wall, their eyes white from the lack of light. Who were they? No one could remember their names. The first was a young man, his shirt frayed at the shoulders, a rope around his neck with ligature marks. He had been a village teacher, teaching Kwok Ngu to poor children before being arrested for propaganda against the government. The second was a miner, his calloused hands still stained with black coal even after 3 years in prison. The third was a woman, her hair cut short, her fingernails broken from trying to dig through the wall to find a way out. They died slowly in silence. No trial, no sentence, just the sound of whips and the smell of dried blood. When their last breaths left their chests, their bodies were wrapped in bamboo mats and thrown into a mass grave behind the prison. No tombstones, no incense sticks, only the wind whistling through the cracks in the rocks like a cry. But they were not really gone. I am not a traitor. A voice leaked from the moldy wall. The new guard, Thang, startled and turned around. The corridor was dark, except for the flickering oil lamp. He was sure he had heard someone. But room number 7 had been sealed since last year. Every night, the sound of footsteps echoed even though there was no one in sight. Sometimes it was a cough. Sometimes it was the sound of a code. 3 long beats. 2 short beats. The Vietnamese communication signal. Thang had heard stories about immortal souls in this prison, but he did not believe it, until one night, he saw a bloodstain spreading on the brick floor, writing, **, tell our story. The prisoners of the past did not seek revenge. They only wanted the world to know that they had lived, fought, and died for what they believed in. In the winter of 1952, Cong Troy Prison received orders to handle political prisoners. Interrogations went on all night. People used red-hot iron rods to press on the backs, locking prisoners in barrels upside down in the sun. Some died of thirst. Some collapsed after being electrocuted by a manual generator. The deaths were not recorded. The records only briefly state, *, prisoner number 113. Died of illness. No name. No age. Their families received a letter saying they were missing on the way to re-education. But memories are not easily erased. An old former prison guard, before he died, told a priest that he often heard crying in the solitary confinement cell. They called each other's names not on the list. The room was 3 square meters wide, with thick stone walls covered in gray moss. The ceiling had iron hooks to hang prisoners up for interrogation. In the corner of the room, a snake-shaped crack ran along it, where prisoners carved the date with a piece of ceramic. After 5 p.m., no one dared to come near. Villagers rumored that anyone who saw a dark shadow in room number 7 would die within a year. An electrician accidentally went in to fix a wire, came home with a chill, and died of a heart attack the next morning. But for those souls, this was the only place they belonged. They wandered between the walls, repeating the last terrifying moments of their lives, like a film stuck in a frame. Before dying, the young teacher wrote a letter in blood. *, I believe that one day, the country will be free. The letter was hidden in a crack in the wall, rotting over the years. They were not glorified heroes. They were losers in a dirty war, where the winner rewrote history. But their souls did not rest in peace for one reason. The truth has not been told. A child in the village was constantly haunted by a recurring dream. A skinny man gave him a button. In 2010, when the prison was demolished, people dug up his remains with a button engraved with the word *, freedom, *. They appeared through *dream*. A historian dreamed that he was locked in a dark room. A voice asked him to record the events of August 13, 1951. Sound *. The rhythmic tapping of *, marching song, * in Mr. Thang's house wall, rebuilt from old prison bricks. Object *. The old 1975 newspaper with blood on it, turning pages by itself when night fell. The last time people saw them was the night before room number 7 was destroyed. A group of people in brown shirts stood silently in a long line, then disappeared into the mist. The next day, workers dug up 12 headless skeletons. They were still waiting to be called by their correct names. Dung never thought he would become a bridge between two worlds. He was just a young journalist just starting out, renting a small room on Lee Van Fuck Street because it was cheap. The room was old, the walls were stained with mold, and there were always footsteps in the attic even though the landlord insisted that no one was there. But after the first night sleeping there, Dung knew he was not alone. The first dream came to him like an old film. A thin man in a faded shirt handed him a rusty fountain pen. Asterisk. Right. Asterisk. His voice was hoarse. Asterisk. Right, so we don't become dust. Waking up, Dung saw on his desk a yellow piece of paper. The words asterisk, room number 7, asterisk written in dark red ink like dried blood. The manuscript asterisk. The call of Hoa Lo, asterisk was born during sleepless nights. Dung wrote as if someone was holding his hand and leading him. The stories appeared clearly. The prisoner tied to an electric pole in the middle of winter. The man locked in a dark cellar with a bucket of ice water poured over him every morning. The woman forced to sign a confession of treason before dying of exhaustion. He used red ink, the color of blood, of unsolved curses, of deaths that were not mourned. Every morning, Dung woke up to find a new page full of words, even though he didn't remember writing. Once, he opened the manuscript and saw a strange line. Asterisk, thank you. But my name is missing. Nguyen Van Su. Dung searched historical documents and discovered a political prisoner with the same name who was executed in 1953. For 3 weeks, Dung lived in a semi-conscious state, knocking on the door at midnight, cold breath in his ear as he wrote. Repeated dreams. He saw himself locked in a dark cell, surrounded by pale faces, everyone holding out their hands as if wanting to give something back. An old woman selling goods near Dung's house saw him and said, asterisk, you have negative energy. So burn grapefruit leaves to ward off bad luck. But Dung did not run away. He understood that these spirits did not want to harm him. They just needed someone brave enough to listen. One night, he heard crying in the attic. Going up to check, he saw a white sheet of paper stuck to the damp wall, clearly showing the words, asterisk, my name is Lati Ma. Buried alive in Khao Lao Hill. Dung's writing desk became a place where two worlds intersected. It was an old wooden table, the tabletop dented with ink stains, next to the window overlooking the small alley. Every night, Dung lit a red candle, placed next to the old fountain pen, the only thing he brought from home. One night, he woke up to find the white paper on the table covered with words, as if someone had written it for him. The landlord once sneaked into the room while Dung was away, and was horrified to see the walls covered with names written in red ink. She wanted to kick him out, but Dung just quietly pointed to the new line of words that had appeared behind her. Asterisk, don't kick him out. We need you, Dung once asked. Asterisk, why choose me? The answer came in a dream. An old man with white hair and beard, wearing prison clothes, said, asterisk, because you are not afraid of the truth. Because you write not to be famous, but to return the names of those who have died. He realized that he was doing something that official history deliberately forgot, calling the names of those who had fallen. Not unknown martyrs, not thousands of people as one, but each specific person, with their own face, personality, and pain. One morning, Dung received a call from an old man in Tai Bin. Asterisk, I am the son of Nguyen Van Su. Is my father in your manuscript? The way Dung writes scares many people. 1. Ritual before writing asterisk. He always puts a cup of water on the table, believing that the souls will drink it to gain strength to read memories. 2. Old fountain pen asterisk. The pen always flows red ink even without a pump. 3. Names that appear by themselves asterisk. When Dung writes someone's name wrong, the page will be wet as if crying. Until he corrects it, it will be dry. The manuscript was completed on a stormy night. Dung opened the window and shouted, asterisk, I'm done. Can you hear me? A collective sigh echoed in the wind. The next morning, the last page had a new line added. Asterisk, now we can sleep peacefully. But Dung knew his mission was not finished. In a drawer, a stack of letters from families of victims of the old regime is waiting to be told. Every name mentioned is a soul finding its way home. If this story touches your heart, please checkmark share the video to spread the word. Checkmark comment with the name of a martyr you know. Checkmark subscribe to the channel to continue writing the forgotten pages of history. Thank you for listening. You have just become their last witness.